number of Canadians seeking insolvency protection is on the rise. Joining us now to examine the state of the household balance sheet following a decade of cheap money, Keith Emery of Credit Canada. Good to see you, Keith.
Thanks for having me, Greg.
So I was taking a look at the latest consumer insolvency numbers, and from the Superintendent of Bankruptcy Canada, in January, they were up year over year. Then in February, again, the latest numbers up year over year. Yep. We were told for the longest time, don't worry about our debt loads. We're keeping up. Well, clearly, we're not keeping up. What's shifting here?
Well, I think we've had, 5 rate increases since 2017. House prices are starting to level out. The debt-to-income ratio, I think the Bank of Canada, when we were back in May last year, was about 170%, and they were saying, okay, we think it's going to start to level out. Now we're up to 178%. So I think consumers are crying uncle. I think there isn't any more equity in their homes to borrow on. So maybe they've hit the wall now, and that's why we're starting to see insolvencies go up.
Those 5 rate hikes, so people have said, even though we're on hold right now, the thing about a rate hike from the Bank of Canada, they'll even say in terms of what levers they're pulling, they're looking for 12 or 18 months.
Right.
So the full effects don't wash through the system until later. So even though they've paused, is there more pain to come?
Right, exactly. I mean, you look at where mortgage renewals come up. So maybe the rate hikes have stopped, but you still got a 5-year period through which people come up for renewal. When they get there, suddenly their cost of borrowing is higher. Maybe they can't renew, so they're forced into a situation. Or if they're trying to get, extend more credit through a second mortgage, it's not happening anymore. They're not passing the stress test.
I wanted to talk, you mentioned earlier about how at some point, a lot of people have told me this in the past, that they were concerned about this. We'd say, but the numbers, the delinquencies are low.
Yeah.
What's the problem? They say, well, people can go to their home equity, they can draw from home equity lines of credit, and some people fear that game would be up at some point. Is it up to you? Have you actually seen people who are in a situation now where they've gone to their lender, they've gone to their bank and said, well, can I just tap the equity in my home to set this straight? And they're like, no, sorry, not anymore.
Yeah, we definitely see cases of that at Credit Canada. Either the bank says, no, we won't lend to you on that equity because of the rules have changed or the interest rates are higher, or there's no equity anymore at all, so there's nothing to borrow on. So I think my boss was on here a little while back, and she said people were treating their homes like a piggy bank. I think the piggy bank is empty.
So if the piggy bank is empty, what do these people do then? Because that was their first thing. They went to their lender, their institution, and said, I've been tapping my home equity to consolidate things, and if I can't do that with you, do they find somewhere else to go and do it?
Yeah, no, I think at this stage, it's time to stop the chain. Like, if you can't get a low-interest home equity line, I think the worst thing you can do as a consumer is look for some subprime lender at a higher rate of interest. That's just delaying the inevitable. You need to look at the whole situation, your holistic situation. You need to look at your income and expenses, figure out how much you have left over, and how you can come up with a plan to repay your debt. And if that plan doesn't work out, if you don't have enough money, then you need to meet with a credit counselor like we have at Credit Canada.com or an insolvency trustee. We also have, one thing I wanted to say is people, if they don't want to meet with somebody, they're not ready for that. If they go online, on our website, we have 2 tools. We have a debt calculator and we have a budget planner. Run the debt calculator. It'll tell you how long it'll take you to pay off your debt using different strategies. Use the budget planner to figure out how much money you have left over, and that will tell you if you actually have a strategy that you can employ on your own or if you need professional help.
Good advice. I wanted to ask you one more question about the home equity line of credits, because I don't know if a lot of people realize this, because we've seen the growth in that space pretty dramatic over the past several years, but they are callable, meaning that your lender at some point could say, hey,
yes,
that home equity line of credit that you thought you were just going to ride forever, we're calling it now. We want it back. Are you actually seeing that? Are the lenders getting to that point now?
I haven't personally seen that. I probably think the lenders would probably not want to resort to that necessarily either. They're probably also concerned about managing the overall situation, but it's something that borrowers should definitely be aware of, and you should be trying to deleverage as much as possible. If you have a home equity line of credit, maybe you want to consider rolling it into your actual mortgage, so you have some stability around that and the rate is lower. I'd be wary of HELOCs. There's danger there.
Now, I wanted to get into the fact that, back to the beginning, the insolvency is on the increase. I was raised with a healthy amount of Catholic guilt. You always feel like it's your fault. But what strikes me when I talk to people in the insolvency business is that sometimes life changes on people. They haven't been reckless, but situations, suddenly they find themselves in the situation. So I guess the message is anyone could sort of get caught in a bad space if life doesn't go their way.
Absolutely. Yeah, we don't find guilt as a productive way of approaching the situation. no need to feel guilty. A lot of people are in this situation, sometimes through no fault of their own. Just take action. Look at the situation. Try not to have that fear that's blinding you. Sit down, look at your situation, talk with people, get some help. There's nothing to be ashamed of.
All right, Keith, great to have you here. Thanks for your insight.
Thank you.
Keith Emery is Operations Director at Credit Canada.